Hello, everybody. I'm back for another new moon video. This is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis. And on June 18th at 12:37 a.m. New York time, right after midnight, and at 5:37 a.m. London time, the moon will align with the sun in almost 27 degrees of Gemini. And of course, as best as you can with all the new moons, get really quiet at that time and see if you're getting any new messages or ideas if you're awake during that time. And if you are getting insights or anything, harvest them and fold them into your intention settings for the new moon cycle. And of course, I will talk about this process later in the forecast and even give you the very best and most potent times for setting intentions for this lunar cycle. And yes, also feel free to use the timestamps that are available in the description part of the video below, so you can jump to certain places in the video that you're more interested in or that you want to watch more often than just once. And yeah, one major thing to note with this new moon is that Pluto has moved back into Capricorn, which happens on June 11th. And that means that Pluto is now answering again to Saturn because Saturn rules Capricorn. Now, we also have Neptune and Saturn, both of them in Pisces in their station phases, which means that they're both exalted at the time of the new moon. When planets are exalted, that means that something is in our face in regards to those energies, and it wants our attention, and we need to bring awareness to what's coming at us. And I will talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, but first let's look at Gemini and the influence Gemini has on this new moon and the aspects that are connected to this new moon chart. Now, Gemini is the archetype of thought forms, communication in all its forms, curiosity, mental connections. It represents the development of language and intelligence, as well as our ability to adapt and relate to our immediate environment. And I should say, when I talk about intelligence here, I do mean intellectual, mental intelligence, because there's all kinds of intelligences that we can have. So it's not always just mental, but Gemini is definitely connected to mental intelligence. And this is a very busy energy, Gemini, because Gemini really focuses on collecting information, and we're invited to look at our mental programming or our conditioned mind during this time. And we want to kind of see what's going on there. Like, what are some new thought structures we might want to engage with? What are some old ones that we might want to let go of? And so on. Now, the new moon in Gemini does square an exalted Neptune in Pisces. And so with a square, of course, we are invited to stretch and grow. It does challenge us to get out of our comfort zone. A square always says, hey, let's evolve. And of course, evolving means we have to get out of our comfort zone. And we also need to work through something that requires a creative approach. So something different from what we've done before. And so we're asked to make some changes that may not necessarily come naturally, but that are required if we want to grow and if we want to move to that next level of our journey. And this is true individually and collectively speaking, because Neptune, of course, is a planet that involves the collective as well. Now, in this case, with this square, our comfort zone is the mind, Gemini, right? Because the sun and moon are in Gemini. And our need to be mentally busy and engaged is where we feel the most alive and the most happy during that time. And so the challenge here is to find a way to trust our intuition, which is Pisces, and turn inwards for answers and for direction. So we need to really go within before we can go to the outside world. So ask yourself, what might be possible if I allowed myself to shift from only paying attention to my conditioned mind to getting present in the here and now and feeling into the energy and truth of who I am. And so, of course, with all the questions, and there's going to be many more in this video, with all the questions, feel free to meditate or journal on the questions. The questions are there for you to really align yourself with the energies so you can understand the energies from a more intuitive place. So it's not about answering the questions with your mind. It's more about receiving the answers and allowing the answers to come to you in a more creative process. So see if you can play with that a little bit, if that resonates. And then here's some other questions you can ask yourself with the square. Is it possible that what I understand with the mind is very different from what I comprehend with the heart? So, of course, Gemini, the mind, Pisces is the heart. So how is it different? And if that is so, if it is different, could I trust my heart 5% more than I have done previously? And could I allow myself to slow down and be in the knowing that all is well all of the time? So sometimes when we're in this very busy place, when we try to figure stuff out all the time or try to get more and more information, to have more and more facts, to know more and more, what we're doing really is we're keeping ourselves busy to not have to engage with some other things maybe that feel more uncomfortable. And often it can be that we don't want to feel our feelings. And of course, Pisces has a lot to do with our feeling body. It has a lot to do with our sensing of energy. And so we need to just, in order to let ourselves feel, in order to let ourselves sense and connect to our intuition, we need to slow down and we need to tune in. And so this last question, could I allow myself to slow down and be in the knowing that all is well all of the time? It's just bringing us into the present moment, because the mind is very good at not being in the present moment. The mind is very good at being in the past and being in the future, but not necessarily in the present moment, right? So keep in mind that Neptune is also exalted at the time of the new moon, that it's stationing, and it will be stationing until July 14th. And so the energy of this planet is way, way louder than it normally would be. And we may not only feel more sensitive, because, Neptune in Pisces in its own sign, a lot of sensitivity. We may also feel very compassionate towards other people or towards people who are less fortunate than us. And we might also feel kind towards other people, or kinder than normal, because we can see the pain or we can feel the pain that other people are experiencing. But we may also feel more anxious or more confused or more scattered-brained or more overwhelmed at times by the outside world, or also with our interactions with other people. And often the reason why we feel some of these more lower or denser vibrational energies of Pisces during a station phase is when we're not able, because we get to see what happens when we're not able to use the energy at its highest vibration, which Neptune in Pisces, the energy it's best used for is to tap into our own sensitivities, to tap into the energy field all around us, to tap into our heart, into our compassion, into being kind towards ourselves and others. So if we're not able to do that, we're going to feel that anxiety. And also it's about Pisces. It's very much also about being present in the here and now. And if we're not able to be present in the here and now, we tend to get anxious, confused, scattered, overwhelmed. So just something to notice during the station phase, see what you can notice there. Pay attention to what comes up for you personally during that station phase, and allow it to be there just for now, because the station phase is really just to create awareness. It's not to fix, change, or run away from what's there, but it's really about creating awareness for ourselves to understand a little bit better what's so. So once Neptune starts its retrograde phase and ends its station phase, we can start to get in better alignment with these energies. So while this station phase is happening, ask yourself, could I allow my feelings to flow? And could I allow my sensing of energies all around and inside of me to inform my next moves, my direction? And how am I giving myself at least 5 minutes per day to tune in, support me? And this you can use this during the station phase, these questions, but you can also use them once Neptune has already started to go retrograde. Now, more about all of this, of course, always in my daily forecast and my weekly forecast. So feel free to engage with that part of my website and what I offer there. One last question here is that could be really, really helpful with that Neptune station is, might connecting to nature give me some peace of mind and understanding of how life always takes care of itself. Right? Nature is such a beautiful teacher for us if we really allow ourselves to tune into nature and really take it in and really observe very well how nature functions. We might discover a lot of great nuggets of wisdom that we can use for our own lives. Now, like I already said, feel free to meditate or journal on these questions, but also, if you have a group setting of like-minded people where you want to explore some of these questions in a group setting with other people and just brainstorm, stuff that comes up intuitively for everybody in the group, that can be a really great way to use the questions as well and allow ourselves to not just hear what comes up for ourselves, but also hear what comes up for other people, and then maybe get inspired by what other people are intuiting and what they come up with. Now, before we talk about Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, which of course is the most important planet in this new moon chart, I just wanted to share that I also offer my daily forecast, which I mentioned briefly already. And if you would like to get access to my daily forecast and my astrology articles, including all of the coaching questions in writing from this video, so you can have maybe an easier way of working with the questions, feel free to become a member of my online community for only $4 a month. The first month right now is free, no strings attached. You can cancel anytime. I will talk about how to get your first month for free a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, currently in its own sign, also in Gemini, making a sextile to Venus in Leo and squaring an exalted Saturn in Pisces. So let's unwrap all of that for those of you who don't understand the astrology lingo. Let's start with the sextile that Mercury is making to Venus in Leo. So with this sextile, our communication skills are enhanced, and this gives us an opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings or simply express something that we have been meaning to express and maybe didn't have the courage to speak up about in the past, but now we feel ready to do so. And so the beauty here is that even if we do speak up, we can do that with grace, because it's Venus, right? We can do it with grace, and we can do it so that there are mutual benefits between what we're saying and what the other person needs to be hearing and receiving from that. So this is also a really great time to make new social contacts, to network, to connect with other people, to share from your heart. So ask yourself, what have I been waiting to discuss or share? And with whom? And how excited could I let myself be about whatever it is that I'd like to share? And how might adding a dash of love, a dash of gratitude and joy, how might adding a dash of all of that create a wholehearted interaction with other people? And how can I take advantage of this opportunity? Because remember, opportunities, they're not given to us. We have to take them. We have to take action. We have to do something with it. All right, so now let's talk about Mercury square to the very, very exalted Saturn in Pisces. Another challenging aspect that invites us to stretch and grow. Now, we may want to be more aware of any rigid or negative thinking at this time, not only when it comes to interacting with others, but especially when it comes to our own inner dialogue. So really pay attention there. Now, our day-to-day mind, which is Mercury in Gemini, is asking us to stay engaged with the outside world via email, text, phone, internet, the news, chatting, connecting, just being or staying informed in terms of like what goes on out there in the world. However, that exalted Saturn in Pisces says not so fast. Let's slow this down a little bit here for a minute. Saturn is asking us to focus on our own inner spiritual work and face our various modes of escapism from this world or from ourselves. So ask yourself, what role does self-responsibility play when it comes to my intuitive processes? How can I take more self-responsibility, or how can I be more committed when it comes to my intuitive processes? And where have I been too naive or in denial about something in my life? Because sometimes with Pisces, we can get a little naive. We can get a little bit, sometimes we don't want to see the stuff that we don't want to see. Things can be too harsh, or things can be too intense for the Pisces energy. So where have we been too naive or in denial? And what might become possible in the external world if I brought 5% more responsibility and a realistic assessment to what's needed internally with my feeling body? And might it allow me to be more present, or more in the flow, or more at peace? So Saturn is really trying to pull us inward and into a commitment towards being present in the here and now. And the last question you can ask here is, what spiritual or creative tools could I practice to calm my nervous system? Because remember, with Saturn, it's always about practice makes perfect. It's all about taking those baby steps towards something and getting better at it, getting better at it, getting better at it. So what spiritual or creative tools could I practice right now to calm my nervous system? And here are just a few things that came up for me when I was sort of contemplating about this Saturn station phase. And you may have other tools or practices, but some of the things that came up to me was music, right? Like, because music is such a Piscean thing. It's that creativity with music, whether it's songwriting or whether it's just, sound healing or healing through music or song. But then also poetry, using our creative minds to write poetry or to connect to a poetic way of perceiving things or thinking about life. What else is connected to Pisces that we can practice or that we can incorporate into our lives so we can calm that nervous system? Well, one thing that came to mind right away is drinking lemon balm tea. This is what I do when I get really revved up or I'm nervous, because I have Venus in Gemini natally. So my nervous system is very sensitive. Also because my Venus is opposite my Neptune. So there's that as well. So I drink lemon balm tea, and it's helped me tremendously with that. The other thing that I absolutely love, of course, and that most people already know who have worked with me, I love to use the Sedona method, the releasing, the letting go of any kind of like energy patterns or any emotional patterns that keep me vibrating in a kind of denser vibrational place. Then, of course, what I also love is yin yoga. The other thing that is very much connected to Pisces too is sleep and dreams. So sleep studies, dream work, anything like that might be something you could practice or engage in or focus on. And, low or no sensory breaks. And sometimes, the nervous system, when the nervous system is really revved up, the thing that really calms it down is when we don't have any more input coming in, right? That's because there's so much input coming into our, through all of our senses really on a daily basis, that we get overwhelmed with all this input. So a low or no sensory approach or a break where you can just, be in a dark room, or where you can not have any noise, just put on some headphones, no noise headphones, and just be in stillness, or go into an environment in nature where there is very low sensory input. And so, of course, the other thing that comes with that low and no sensory breaks that came to mind as well was stargazing, forest bathing. For those of you who don't know what forest bathing is, feel free to look it up. But it's basically like being in the forest, being in nature, and just allowing ourselves to just take in, the energy of the trees, the energy of the plants, and how powerful that energy is, and how rejuvenating that is. And then the last thing that I thought of was cold water plunges, that can really help with inflammation and with helping the nervous system to calm down as well. Now, feel free to share your tools and your practices that you have that help you with being more present, that help you with calming down your own nervous system from all the noise and all the technology that we're around on a daily basis. And feel free to leave a comment in the comment section and let me know what it is that you do that helps you. And, maybe if you don't have anything, feel free to get inspired by the ones I already mentioned here. All right. Now, Saturn in Pisces starts its yearly 4 months retrograde phase less than 12 hours before the new moon becomes exact on June 17th. And it will remain in its retrograde phase until November 4th. And during that time, we are being asked to access our ambition to be spiritually sovereign from within and practice spiritual maturity, really taking responsibility for our own practices. And we may also need to reassess our relationship to responsibility, to boundaries, to authority. So ask yourself, what does spiritual maturity mean to me? And how can I practice it? And where am I asked to become more responsible when it comes to, being present or being connected versus being separate or being disconnected from myself or from other people? Now, retrograde phases often seem to also coincide with slowdowns or setbacks, especially the Saturn retrograde phase. And so this could be a blessing in disguise, because we might be invited to make some inner or outer shifts during the retrograde phase so that we can move forward rather than repeat old patterns that we've already had in place. So ask yourself, am I feeling spiritually blocked or energetically overwhelmed right now? And is there sort of like an emotion? Do I feel emotionally fatigued or depressed? And what am I being asked to change or to do differently? And what are the vices that help me escape those feelings? Because when we take a look at our spiritual practices and our energetic connection with life, like are we in the flow with life? Are we always resisting it? Are we overwhelmed all the time, right? Or do we feel sort of tired and depressed a lot? That tells us that we are not really in tune with life. If we're feeling that way, we're not in tune with ourselves. That means that the outside world takes precedent over the inner world. And if the outside world takes precedent, then you're never going to be in alignment, or there's an imbalance that gets created between the inner and the outer. So we can observe that, especially during the station phase, while Saturn is still exalted until June 24th. But also during the retrograde phase, we can look to see what needs to change. What do I need to do differently so that I can become more in tune and get more into the flow with life, rather than fighting life, be in flow with life. And what are some of the vices that keep me from being in tune, keep me being in the flow? Because often when we have addictions, or when we have certain things that we're doing to escape life, we're actually not doing ourselves a service. It may feel good for a moment or two, or for as long as the experience lasts. But once we get out of that, once we're no longer in that vice, or we're no longer using whatever it is that helps us escape, then we're back in the reality of, I'm not in alignment, I'm not in the flow with life, and resistance comes up, and it becomes very difficult to deal with life. So one of the ways that I work with this is with the Sedona method, because it helps me and helps my clients to get very much in tune and in alignment with life and with the flow of life. Now, Saturn will feel exalted until June 24th, and it will be moving slower than usual until then. So until June 24th, ask yourself, what is in my face in connection to my long-term spiritual goals? What have I already achieved? And what is still waiting to be accomplished? Because remember, while you're a human being, while you're on this planet, you're never really done. I mean, this idea of like enlightenment and that we can just be done with it all, it's a nice idea. And you might have moments where you feel like you're there and you're done. But, life keeps moving on and life keeps happening. So we're constantly in a place of like, what's next? How can I deal with this next challenge? How can I deal with what's coming up now? And of course, the better you get at practicing your spiritual sovereignty, and the better you get at tuning in, the easier it gets. But it doesn't mean that you're done. So what have I accomplished and achieved already? And this is very important that we acknowledge what we've already achieved. Where, to look back and go, okay, where was I 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Not yesterday, right? But where was I 10 years ago or 5 years ago when it came to tuning in, or when it came to my spiritual practice? And where am I now? But then also, what is still waiting for me to be accomplished? Where can I still create, maybe practice a little bit more, or do a little bit more to get better at this, to get better at connecting with my intuition, to get better at taking breaks, to get better at being in the present moment, to not let my mind be the dictator of my life, but to really allow myself to be present with what's so. Now, what do I see now that keeps me from being truly connected to my intuitive knowing, to my higher self, to my compassionate heart? And then what can be done to achieve this connection? We want to really have a beautiful relationship with our intuitive knowing, because it's such a beautiful compass. It's such a beautiful guide, a much better guide than anything in the outside world. This intuitive knowing, because it taps into so much more knowledge than we can even get to when we're just, searching the computer for answers. The computer knows maybe a lot, but, the universe is infinite. It has infinite wisdom. And the key also is the universe doesn't just have data. The universe also has wisdom. So what do I see now that keeps me from being truly connected to my intuitive knowing, to my higher self, to my compassionate heart? And what can be done to achieve this connection? And then where do I need to have healthier boundaries? Where do I need to be more realistic about my own and other people's limitations? Everyone is on their own journey, right? We all have our own path that we're walking when it comes to where we're at in connection with tuning in connection with our intuitive knowing. Not everybody is the same, yet everyone is the same. And this is a huge Pisces lesson, to know that we're all the same, yet we're not all in the same place. Now, since Pluto, which has moved back into Capricorn on June 11th, now answers to Saturn, we are invited to see our interconnectivity with all of life as much as we can. We're really tuning into like seeing this interconnectivity. And of course, Pluto started its 15-year journey through this sobering Earth sign in January of 2008. It started moving into Capricorn, and it stayed in Capricorn until March 23rd of this year, 2023, and is now returning back for a little while until January 21st, 2024. And so we get to, move back and see, is there something that we still need to finish up? Where do we need to tie off some knots that we haven't been able to tie off yet? So this journey really initiated a deeper inquiry into our relationship to tradition, social structures, and authority, both our inner authority and the outer authority out there in the world of people. And so because Pluto is retrograde right now, as well as Saturn, at the time of the new moon, I should say, depending on when you're watching this video, this is an optimal time to continue any unfinished processes in connection to our soul's purpose out there in the world. And so we're invited to dig deeper and transform what doesn't feel emotionally authentic, and also to make deeper alliances with people, places, or things that bring us closer to an empowered experience. And especially one where we can feel passionate about what we're building out there in the world, what we're leaving behind as a legacy out there for society or for the next generation to come. So ask yourself, with this Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, ask yourself, what has been my biggest should over the past 15 years? And am I ready to make choices that are not based on shoulds? And what would that look like? And the reason why this is really important for us to contemplate is because a should always puts pressure on you, and a should always comes from something outside of yourself. So it comes from either a parental voice or a voice from societies, from authority figures in society that tell us we should be doing something a certain way. And so we sometimes internalize these social or parental shoulds, and then we start shoulding on ourselves. Oh, I should be there and not here, or I should be accomplishing this, or I should know better, or I should look this way, or I should, whatever it might be. And so these shoulds put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but they don't say anything about what's actually so for ourselves and what is in alignment with who we are. So rather than shoulding on ourselves, wouldn't it be better to just make powerful choices that we want to make, not that we should be making? So am I ready to make choices that are not based on shoulds? And what would that look like? Great questions to contemplate. Now, we also talk about Pluto in Capricorn in our next forecasting forum on July 5th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, when we will cover the new moon nodes journey through Aries Libra. And some of you already know the moon nodes represent our soul's journey And the transiting moon nodes will show us where we need to collectively and individually speaking move into a more balanced experience with a polarity, in this case with Aries Libra. And Pluto, of course, in Capricorn will square those moon nodes for the rest of the year when the moon nodes move into Aries Libra. So we will talk a little bit about that. We will see how that impacts each one of us personally. And if that sounds of interest and you'd like to investigate your own chart together with us and with me, feel free to join us live or register to receive the MP4 video presentation of the live event. And you have access to that via my website if you're curious, or just email me if you have any questions. Now, to sum it all up for this new moon, the next 28 days highlight the power of information and the preciousness of our awareness. And this new moon urges us to be very selective about our media choices and extra mindful of how we communicate with other people, but also especially how we communicate with ourselves. That inner dialogue, right? Now we are asked to adapt to new circumstances through our curiosity and exposure to a wide variety of ideas, people, and experiences. And we learn that there are many angles and that there are many filters and there are many ways of looking at something. And Gemini represents the interplay of duality, of like being able to see things in duality, like good, bad, right, wrong, hot, cold, black, white. And so the challenge is here that we need to incorporate or integrate these dualities within ourselves. And of course, Pisces is the perfect energy to help us do that, to help us integrate. So ask yourself, how might I assimilate mind and emotion, spirit and matter? And as best as you can, remain curious, open-minded, and adaptable for the next 28 days. Trust yourself and trust that your heart knows the way, and allow the mind to become a neutral observer as much as possible. When we're able to bring the mind into an observer position, it's much easier to tune into the heart energy. Because when the mind is too busy judging, too busy separating information from right, wrong, good, bad, then it's very difficult to tune into what is actually going on beyond the mind. Now ask yourself, am I just my mind, or am I more than that? Am I more than my mind? And really, really ask that question and look and check. Don't just answer it right away. Just really check. Am I just my mind, or am I more than my mind? And if I am more than just my mind, what is beyond the mind? What is beyond thinking? So really tune into that. Tune into what is beyond thinking. And what might I discover if I stay open to being inspired by life, rather than focusing on all the bad news and denser vibrational thoughts that come through? So what might I discover if I just stay open to being inspired by life? And that requires being present, observing, really taking life in, right? We cannot be inspired by life if we can't take it in, rather than focusing on all the noise and all the denser vibrational stuff that moves through, whether that's our own mind or out there in the world, other people's reporting or, sharing or whatever it might be. Now, another question you can ask here is, might a 10-minute meditation or mantra or prayer practice help make me more aware of my relationship to my thoughts and what arises in consciousness on an ongoing basis? And this could also be a chant, right? Like if you're more into like vocalizing through singing, if you're a singer or an artist or something, you might want to chant, something, a mantra. You can chant a mantra. And then how might laughter, singing, or humming support my body, mind, heart connection? And that's one of my favorite questions, because I love laughter, I love singing, I love humming, and I love this synergy that happens when you do that it just connects everything. It connects your mind with your body, with your heart, and it just feels like this very wholehearted connection that you can experience. So how might laughter, singing, or humming support my body, mind, heart connection? So feel free to experiment with some of this stuff here. And if you have an ascendant, career point, or personal planets in 24 to 29 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then this new moon will impact you a little bit more than other people. But even if you don't have planets or points in those degrees or signs, look to see where 26 to 27 degrees of Gemini lands in your birth chart, because that area of life, that house, will be most impacted by this new moon for the next 28 days after the new moon becomes exact. And if you don't know how to look that up in your own birth chart, feel free to watch my class, How to Read Your Birth Chart. This class is available for free on my website. It's a 30-minute class. You can just go to my homepage at astrologercoach.com and just scroll down all the way until you get to a window that says free class. And just click on that, and that will give you access. Now, also, before we talk about setting intentions, if you would like to try out my universal membership and receive my daily forecasting emails for free for 1 month, go to my website to the membership page and add the monthly universal membership to your cart. Add the coupon code UNIVERSAL at checkout. I will have also below the video, I will have a link and the coupon code below as well. And yeah, feel free to add that at checkout, and then you'll get the first month for free. And if you realize that the membership is not for you, after a week or 2 or 3, and you decide like, you know what, that's just not me, no problem, no attachments. Feel free. You can at any time pause or cancel your membership via the membership portal. Go to my account first and then go to my subscriptions and click on that, and just pause or cancel the membership there. So just something to try. You might get something out of it. Now, let's talk about new moon intentions, the moment we've all been waiting for. The new moon is also the best time to set some powerful intentions for this new moon cycle. And this is best done soon after the new moon becomes exact, and definitely not during a moon void, of course, phase. So this month, the best and most potent time to set intentions would be between 12:37 a.m. when the new moon becomes exact and 2:24 a.m. on June 18th. So after midnight, already on June 18th, no longer June 17th. And then again from 6:58 a.m. on June 18th until 12:37 a.m. on June 20th. So that second time frame is a much longer time frame. So basically all of June 18th and all of June 19th, you have time to set some very powerful intentions. Please know that all of the times here are given in Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and that's in the New York time zone. And if you live in another time zone other than US Eastern Daylight Savings Time, feel free to join my Facebook fan page or follow me on Twitter. I will be posting reminders to set your intentions on Sunday, June 18th, and on Monday, June 19th, to let you know when it is time to set your intentions. And then you just basically, when you see those reminders pop up, then just it's time to sit down and set your intentions. And if you need more information about how to do it, there is an article on my website that tells you in detail like what's the best way to set your intentions. Feel free to click on the link below this video for that article. And then have a fantastic new moon. If you are a member already, I will see you again in about 2 weeks when we talk about the full moon. to see how far we've come since setting our new moon intentions. And if you're not yet a member of my online community, I will see you in about 4 weeks for the next new moon video. But whatever the case may be, however long we are apart, much love, and as best as you can, take good care of yourself. Take good care of yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Remember that all of you needs your love and your attention and your balance, and needs you to do whatever you can so that you can be healthy and in a high vibrational place. All right, so have a good one. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.